The struggles for Lars Nootbaar reached a fever pitch on Friday for the Cardinals as they lost their sixth game in a row. What gives and what do the Cardinals do moving forward? We'll talk about it coming up on B-Schaeff Daily. Lord help me. What's going on, everyone, and welcome in to this edition of B-Schaeff Daily. Brenden Schaeffer with you, evening hours of Friday, June 13th. 2025. And I'm just going to say it right now. This has the potential to get a lot worse before it gets better for the St. Louis Cardinals, who have now lost 6 consecutive games, and they just flat out don't match up very well right now with the Milwaukee Brewers. They're pitching decently enough. Eric Fetty gave him a chance. Bullpen kept it close. Had an opportunity with the go-ahead run at the plate. The tying run in scoring position with Lars Nootbaar batting in the top of the ninth inning. And, well, Lars Nootbaar had the same outcome that he had a bunch of other times in the game on Friday. 4 strikeouts, 0 for 5 for Nootbaar, whose OPS is down to 690 for the season. His batting average down to 226. Something's got to give. There is no way you can continue with Lars Nootbaar batting leadoff anymore. And that's true even if you don't have a great solution as far as who to put in his place. And the Cardinals don't, just to be totally honest with you. Like, when Mason Wynn moves up to the leadoff spot on Saturday, which is going to happen, it's not automatically fixed. Mason Wynn was 0 for 4 tonight as well. His OPS is down to 720. Lars Nootbaar has been wearing the struggles of the Cardinals offense, and that's fair because he's got to be the tone setter, and to this point, Ollie has been reluctant to remove him from that spot. Oftentimes, I agree with a lot of Ollie Marmol's moves. I know many Cardinals fans do not. I happen to think he does a pretty good job. If there's a criticism that I would have of Ollie Marmol is that there's a little bit of a stubbornness to stick with the guys that he just has the trust in, and it makes it to be a bigger deal to move the lineup around when you do decide that you have to. It's like it's always going to come 2 or 3 days too late to see that move. And it's going to happen on Saturday. I believe it's been reported by those up in Milwaukee. Derek Gould, anyway, tweeted out the Cardinals are going to make a change at leadoff tomorrow as Lars Nootbaar's struggles persist. He tweeted that. There's a link to a story. The story had nothing about it, so I don't know what the quote is. But that tweet is enough to say that he's maybe going to update that story and have some information about that. But I assume that comes from Oliver Marmol and Derek Gould's reporting. So that's what you'll see. It's a lefty on the mound on Saturday. Jose Quintana, former Cardinal. Mason Wynn will probably be your leadoff bat. Brendan Donovan, they are still waiting on. The latest update was from earlier on Friday, and basically they're going to put some carbon whatever in his shoe, I guess. I don't know, to try to help the situation. Not 100% clear on what that is. That was another Derek Gould report that I saw earlier today as I was doing the big show. I'll scroll back to see if I can find that tweet just so you know exactly what I'm talking about here, because I'm obviously not in Milwaukee today covering the series. I did a little search to try and find, there it is, carbon. See, now, Twitter, why would you do that to me? No, I searched the word carbon. That little noise you hear is the Control F when you search a word on a page and it doesn't show up as being there. But it is. I know that he tweeted about it. Oh, just give me a damn minute. If I'm a little short-tempered tonight, it's because there's a lot of feelings going on around Cardinals Twitter and social media, and I just can't help myself. There's a lot of fair criticisms to make right now about this Cardinals team. Saying that they have 4 catchers is not a fair criticism. It makes you sound dumb and uninformed. Just saying. If you're out there saying that, that's how you sound. There are fair criticisms to make of Lars Nootbaar, who has been putrid over the last week or so, and maybe even a little bit longer than that. Now, over his last 5 games, he is 0 for his last 23 with 13 strikeouts. Yes, I think Ollie probably waited a couple of days too long to move him down in the order. I defended it at first because, well, they don't really have a lot of obvious names to replace. I would throw Alec Burleson up there right now before Lars Nootbaar. I mean, he's still swinging the bat decently well and taking good ABs. 2 for 4 in the game tonight. His OPS is actually on the rise, whereas a lot of other Cardinals are finding their OPS dwindling. Although the Cardinals did have at least 7 hits today. That's more than they had by a margin of about double compared to the 3 hits they had in Game 1 on Thursday. But no, if you hear it in my voice, the tone, there's a comment that was said on Twitter by a Cardinal fan, and I'm all the time told, don't pay any mind to people on Twitter, but I do, because I try to respond to everybody's comments, that said, oh, Lars Nootbaar's never been good. What's this obsession with Lars Nootbaar? He's never been good. That was a comment. Well, that's not true. Lars Nootbaar has a 112 OPS plus in his career, which means for his career, he's been 12% above league average as a hitter. That's pretty good. If I had 9 guys in my lineup with those numbers, I would win a lot of games. Now, this year, Lars Nootbaar came into today as a 99 OPS plus, which means he's 1% below league average, and then he went 0 for 5 with 4 strikeouts. So that's going to drop even further. But Lars Nootbaar has been good in his past, and it's why Ollie Marmol has been anchored to him as the leadoff man, because he's been good before, and Ollie is just hoping that they can swing him out of this slump and he can be good again. But clearly, it's gotten to a point where you got to have some intervention, and they've tried to have him sit out some days in addition to what you might normally do. But now he's played 3 games in a row and was 0 for 13 with 8 strikeouts in those games, 1 walk. So he's been on base 1 time over the past week, essentially. It's been extremely bleak. All right, you move him down. Don't have a great option necessarily of who you're going to move up. Mason Wynn, he's been struggling too, but he can hack it. Throw him up in the leadoff spot, that's fine. Put Herrera up there if you want. Just so you know, Herrera has also been tailing off a little bit recently compared to what his numbers have been. OPS is down to 901, so he'll drop below 900. Now, granted, that's just been within the last 3 days or so that he's a 1 for 11. He was, really good in the beginning of that Blue Jays series, final day against the Dodgers. He had like a 6 for 13. So there's still a lot in that bat. I am not trying to make Ivan Herrera the person that we, are complaining about here tonight. But the Cardinals just don't have enough guys firing on their cylinders offensively right now at the same time. And it's a problem against a Brewers team that is pitching really well and is going to continue to pitch well. It could get worse before it gets better. I do not expect a win on Saturday. They can maybe surprise me, but Jose Quintana feels like just a brutal matchup for where the Cardinals are right now. He's going to get them out. He's going to force them to get themselves out. I'll predict 6 innings, 1 run for the Cardinals on Saturday. We'll see if Andre Palante can go more than that and basically shut out the Brewers to give you a chance to win that game. It's absolutely bleak right now, and I think it could get worse before it gets better, because I am looking at the Saturday, Sunday and saying, man, if you're the Cardinals, then you can just split those 2. Concede that you lose the series, but get one of these next 2 to try and just get back to some level of equilibrium, and then you'll have to really turn it up and put the screws to the White Sox because they're not a good team. You got to find a way when you go to Chicago for that series to beat them. But it's bleak right now. I'm not going to lie to you. Cardinals dropped to 36-34. The Brewers now a game and a half clear of St. Louis in the NL Central standings. The Reds have been climbing, by the way, as well, but they did lose today to the Tigers, so they've fallen to a 500 record. The Cardinals still have a game in hand on the Reds. They're a game ahead of Cincinnati. But you just look at the makeup of this Cardinals lineup right now, and there's a lot to question and wonder about. I don't think it's going to be this way all year, gang, but like when they lose 6 in a row, your head's in the sand if you're not acknowledging what some of the problems are. And I've been trying to do that for sure. I don't think it is indicative that they're going to be just a team that continues a month-long tailspin to kind of replace the 18-7 May they had. I expect it will turn around, but I don't know if it's going to turn around this weekend against Milwaukee. I said it coming into Friday's game. If it's going to turn around, it will be because the offense performs better than I see coming against the pitching matchups that they're facing. I said that this afternoon on the Big Show. Peralta was going to be a challenge. Well, he was. 6 innings, 1 run allowed. Tomorrow, Quintana is going to be a challenge. I expect a very similar output by him. Quinn Priester is the scheduled starter, I believe, for Sunday. Maybe Miles Michaelis is able to kind of go heads up with him and you find a way to win it in the bullpens. They could still split this series. I wouldn't predict it right now. And look, when you want to talk about, it seems like everybody's got their thing. Every Cardinals fan's got their one thing that they want to hone in on as what they're most upset about. For some people, it's Lars Nootbaar, and Ollie's an idiot for continuing to lead him off. He's not an idiot for leading him off, but I do think it's past time to move him down. And that's just the nature of, an 0 for 23 stretch with 13 strikeouts or whatever it's been. Yeah, so much for my bold prediction of Nootbaar walking more than he is going to strike out this year. That went up in smoke over the past 5 days. No chance that happens at this point. None. You don't have a lot of other guys that are firing on all cylinders, but that's not a reason to not do something. You have to be willing to shake it up, and the longer you wait to shake it up, then it feels like more of a big deal when you do it, rather than, no, it's just standard stuff that you do to try to find a way to, make things work. Now, I think there's a lot of pride and precedent taken by the Cardinals in this notion of having a consistent lineup and players being able to know what to expect within that structure, and I totally understand that, but for right now, you got to blow it up because it's not working. What you're doing is not working. Now, that being said, Ollie Marmol is far from the only person, and really he's not even the first person on the list, in my opinion, if you're going to levy some criticisms about roster build and construction and the way guys are being used. To me, this bench is, it's been a problem, but they don't really seem like they are too eager to fix it. My belief in this is the Cardinals continue to be surprised on a front office level by the degree to which things keep going wrong. And by that, I mean, well, okay, Jordan Walker's going to be out for 10 days, but then he's going to be able to come back. Let's get a look at this Ryan Vilade for a week or so and figure out, is he going to be somebody that you could maybe count on for a right-handed bench role either now or in the future? And if not, you DFA him and you maybe move on. Let's find out about that, though. And let's give him an inordinate amount of playing time against the lefty starters that are coming up because, well, once we brought him up, we didn't really think about the fact that we might see so many lefties. Cole Reagans was called back up from the injured list for the Royals, and then you ended up having to face Clayton Kershaw as well. That was another lefty that was added in you didn't expect. There's a doubleheader mixed in there that facilitated Reagans, and so suddenly you're facing 4 lefties in a week where you probably thought you were only going to see 2. And then here comes Ryan Vilade to play a crap ton, and he wasn't any good, so you didn't get any value out of that. By that point, it would have been like, yeah, we should have called up Sajacy, but you can't probably call up Sajacy at that point where you're admitting that you maybe made a misstep previously, and the Cardinals don't really like to do that from a front office level, for sure. So, okay, not going to call up Sajacy yet. But then Brendan Donovan, of all people, injures his toe, which is another example of why you maybe have Sajacy around, because you don't have any right-handed pop off the bench. Jose Barrero is there on scholarship. They don't trust him to hit. They don't trust him to field. What is he doing there? It's a fair question. That's not an Ollie Marmol problem. That's a John Mozeliak question. Right? Now, if John Mozeliak's answer would be, no, here's why he's there, because we think he's a pretty solid fielder, and I think he's a pretty decent hitter, and Ollie Marmol needs to use him, then that's a different conversation. But I don't get the sense that that's it. I think we kind of all know the deal with Jose Barrero, and it doesn't mean he's a terrible baseball player. It's gotten him this far, all of his skills, and he's very toolsy, and so that's attractive. But there's just not a spot that you're going, oh, yes, put him into this pinch hit situation because it's going to be an upgrade. Put him into this defensive situation because it's going to be an upgrade. He can run a little bit. I don't know about him as a base runner, but he's got speed. All right, that's about it. So when that's one spot of your bench, Siani has since been called up to replace Vilade. That's fine because his defense is at least sound. But he's a lefty bat that you're not eager to put into a game. Joel Pozo, totally get it. Like we love the good AB that he takes. Don't look now, but his OPS is also 690. Like he's not tearing the cover off the ball either this season. For everybody that wants to complain about Pedro Pages catching as often as he does with a 600 OPS, I've got news for you. Your math is wrong if you are insistent that Ivan Herrera behind the plate would be upgrading the Cardinals right now. Maybe it's a new conversation if Jordan Walker were healthy and Brendan Donovan were healthy and they called up Thomas Sajacy, so you had a bench that was just flooded again with these quality options. But right now, that's not the circumstance the Cardinals are in. And by the way, even if that did happen, I would ask you to look at the numbers of some of these players because, for a while, Nolan Gorman was not a guy whose OPS was even any better than Pedro Pages. Currently, Jordan Walker's OPS is not better than Pedro Pages. And that's another thing you can probably tell in my voice, debating with people on Twitter. And I don't even think it's a debate. I understand that this Cardinals lineup has to be better or they're not going to go very far. But like turning the arrows to Pedro Pages, to me, demonstrates a significant lack of understanding by Cardinals fans of what's going on here. You could try Herrera behind the plate more often if you wanted to. And look, I made a case earlier in the year that was sort of the idea behind runway, right? Do some runway to see if this guy can be a viable catcher for 2026. If not, then you know that you might have to trade, whether it's Burleson or Contreras or whatever, to make room for Herrera's bat, because if he's not going to catch and he's not going to play first base, and if Jordan Walker or somebody else is in right field, maybe it's Herrera. Maybe Walker's who's traded. I don't know. But if Herrera can't catch, like, it would be good to make sure you know and you don't ever have to discover more about him as a catcher beyond September of 2025. Like, let this be the year where if you're going to try it ever, make sure you're trying it now so that you can make that determination before an offseason where you're going to have to make some roster moves to make things fit a little bit better next year. For all the complaining about 4 catchers that people do, which is a brain-dead comment, the real problem is they've got 10 DHs, right? Because Burleson's not a right fielder, but he's a good hitter. But they can't put him at first base because they got Contreras at first base, who is also a good hitter. You got to have his bat in there somewhere. Herrera's bat's got to be in there somewhere, but it's a DH bat, folks. And you might say, well, is his bat good enough to DH? It has been so far. It's going to continue to tail off. His OPS will be around 800 when the season ends instead of 900. It's just what's going to happen. But that's still pretty darn good. Is he less valuable because he's not playing a position? Absolutely, he is. But he's also not very valuable behind the plate. And I believe that the Cardinals, as much as it might be valuable to find out for sure with runway for him defensively, I think they've already decided. They don't really think very much of him as a catcher. And I have to be real with you, my eyes haven't seen anything that tells me they're wrong. All right? He can't throw base runners out. I don't think he is as adept when it comes to game calling. I don't know about his preparation. I'm not trying to fault his preparation because I don't know. But I do know how they talk about Pages' preparation, and then I know how it's talked about when it's Herrera, all right? It's different levels. As much as we can pump up Pages by saying it's more of a credit to him that he's catching than it is a detriment to Herrera, words and actions are two different things, and the actions of the St. Louis Cardinals tell you they don't believe Herrera is much of a catcher. And when he's in there, this is very anecdotal for this year, but it sure seems like the starting pitcher gives up a lot more runs when he's in there. And I'm not saying that's fair to him. Arguably, it's not, because it's so anecdotal and it's so sporadic. But, if it happens more, you can kind of look at that and say, all right, it's easy on paper to say Herrera should be the catcher because that's more valuable to have a catcher hitting like Herrera can hit than having a DH that can hit like Herrera can hit. But what I would say is, okay, if you do that, you are losing something defensively. You are losing something with your pitching staff by going from Pages to Herrera on a more regular basis defensively. And for as much as I agree, Pages is not anything more than a number 8 or a number 9 hitter, and probably never will be. His OPS is higher than Jordan Walker. So if we're talking about needing to get another bat in the lineup, and the way you do that is by catching Herrera, you need a different roster because this bench is not teeming with options that are better than Pedro Pages at the plate. It just isn't. And I understand that, I mentioned it earlier, everybody's got their thing that they want to harp on. Some people are Nootbaar haters. Some people are Pages haters. Some people are Ollie haters. Sometimes you can divide and conquer and hate a few different things at the same time. It's all well and good. I will always keep it pretty contextual and pretty pragmatic and just tell you, it's not any one person's fault right now, but I can tell you what the result is, and it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be a Cardinals team that's kind of in the middle of the road or a little bit below a 500 record, which is what Vegas said would happen all along. If this continues, I'm saying. Remember, this was supposed to be a year where the Cardinals didn't end up with a 500 record. And you're saying, well, how do you know? There is no better measurement than I can offer you in terms of public opinion than what the sports books would have told you to bet on in February. 76.5 was the number. You think they'll go over or under that in a win total capacity? That was the number, which means that's kind of about what's expected of them. They weren't expected to even win 80 games. I said they'd win 83. I still think that's right around where my answer is. even though they're quickly dwindling to a pace that's not going to match that. But it's not because Lars Nootbaar is struggling. It's not because Pedro Pages is not a plus hitter. It's not because they don't have a good bench. It's not because their starting rotation has crashed back down to earth in a notable way. And again, Fedde was fine today. But fine is kind of what the rotation had been, with a few extra good starts sprinkled in. 5 1/3, 3 runs allowed by Fedde today. That's fine. The bullpen's actually been probably better than people realize. Matz was good again today. Riley O'Brien is maybe showing some staying power. But it's not because of those individual problems happening. It's because they're all happening at the same time. And it's because a combination of like the front office is kind of sitting on its hands and being very slow to make these moves. Ryan Vilade was on this team for too long. It took too long to get Andre Granillo on this team when Roycroft was there instead. It took too long to send Ryan Fernandez to Memphis in the first place in April. You know, it takes 3 days too long for this team to do anything, and then they eventually stumble into the right move. But they're very stubborn about getting there. That's true from a front office perspective, and as much as I do believe that Ollie Marmol is in a good spot knowing what he's doing, I think it's true from a management perspective as well when Lars Nootbaar's going through the struggles, and you have to wait for the 0 for 5 with 4 Ks to make a move. If you make moves more gradually, my view on that is that it's less of a big deal. It's less earth-shattering when you do it. Now, he's going to have more insight than me on maybe the why behind why you wait, and I think it's pertaining to, players do like that consistency. Nootbaar, Wynn, Herrera, whether it's Nootbaar, Wynn, Contreras, whatever that top 3 is, they like and can feed off of that rhythm and consistency. But at a certain point, what they like is not as important as what wins games. And so if you're not winning games, you sacrifice a little bit of the comfort, I think, with a lineup. And so that's what should happen. And to all his credit, it's going to happen on Saturday. And then we'll see with Brendan Donovan. I started talking about the carbon thing, and then I couldn't find the tweet, and I got sidetracked. From Derek Gould earlier today, Donovan has a carbon fiber insert to protect his toe, and he's going to, quote, push it hard today to see if he can return this weekend. Club is willing to give him till Tuesday, playing this whole series short-handed to avoid losing him for next week. So if they're able to get Donovan back by the White Sox series, they are off on Monday, then it will have been worth it, I suppose. But that's just like you could have had 15 days of Thomas DeJC by now. And I know that Gorman getting runway is maybe an ancillary benefit of some of these other things happening. And his offense has been okay. He was 1 for 4 today. He scored the Cardinals one of their 2 runs. And we've seen some better swings from him. He had a double that happened there in the 9th inning and scored the run on a really nice, tough at-bat by Victor Scott, too, by the way. And he was coming off the bench. Ciani got the start in this one, was 0 for 1, walked. And then Pozo took an at-bat. Scott came in thereafter and took a really tough AB in the 9th inning with the Cardinals having their back against the walls. And then Lars Nootbaar struck out again. And he wasn't close. He's a guy with great plate discipline, and right now he doesn't have it. So you absolutely have to change the look for Newt. And like, if Ollie talked about it post-game, he's a guy that cares so much, and so, he wants to do well for himself, for his team. And that's, the work is exactly what you want it to be from Nootbaar. That's what Ollie was talking about after the game. That's all great. Take him into a situation, though, where he's not going to have to put it all on his shoulders. As the leadoff man, he's going through it right now. You got to get him out of that spot, and so they're going to. What it looks like, though, as far as how you rearrange this lineup beyond that, I don't really know, and I don't really think it matters. You're looking to get Walker back. You're looking to get Brendan Donovan back desperately. He is, talk about how much they miss that guy. We're noticing it right now in this series for sure. And then, maybe you're able to kind of find some stabilization from your lineup that way. But it is the offense right now. It's not the pitching. If you lose a 3-2 game, you lose these low-scoring affairs. Now 6-0 yesterday, maybe not so low-scoring. But I'm looking at the offense to say if they're going to fight back in this series, it's going to be the bats that do it. Let me know your take on that, Cardinals fans. Palante, if he gives you exactly what Fedde did today, 5 1/3, 3 runs, that's just fine. That gives you a chance. But we'll see if that's what happens, and we'll see if the lineup shakeup, which will be coming against the lefty Quintana on Saturday, if that is able to provide a spark that the Cardinals need. I was asked by a Cardinal fan on Twitter, and we will go down on the farm here in a moment, talk about Jordan Walker's rehab continuing, etc. One other comment that was on Twitter, and again, some of the stuff I'm saying tonight, you're like, wow, Brendan's really harsh. He said I'm dumb if I think the Cardinals have 4 catchers. Well, you are, but you're allowed to get better and improve and recognize that Contreras isn't going to catch an inning all year. Pozo isn't really a catcher. He's in the Luke and Baker role because they thought he could hit better than Baker. And Herrera's DHing, so you do kind of need that extra coverage from your catcher. And it doesn't matter that they have 4 catchers, which they don't. They have 3. What matters is their bench isn't good enough. Their lineup right now is not producing enough. And you've got guys hurt in key spots. Those are the things that matter. But I was asked by Brenden on Twitter. He said, is it crazy that I still have hope for this year? That was in a reply to one of my tweets. And I retweeted that, I quote tweeted that. And I said, not crazy, but you're brave to be admitting it this weekend. Because I, kind of figured at that point they were going to lose this game and that people were going to continue to be pretty, upset with the way things are going, which is fair. It's totally fair, guys, to be upset. Just be accurate in your criticism. I know I'm a stickler for that, but that's all I'm saying. Don't say that Lars Nootbaar's never been good. Say Lars Nootbaar sucks eggs right now because he's 0 for 23. That's true. You can be accurate in your criticism and have it be valid without veering into this territory where the criticism is just kind of aimless. You're just pissed at the world and you want somebody to hear it and pay for it. Be accurate in your criticism. There's an F ton to criticize about the Cardinals right now. They've lost 6 in a row. They've had a terrible week. Just be accurate with the stuff you're criticizing. That's my PSA. Not an interesting one, albeit, but I can only be real with this podcast. If I'm going to do a podcast every single day, there are going to be times where the podcast sounds like this after the Cardinals have lost 8 straight. So that's what I got for you. Let's wrap things up here by going down on the farm. And honestly, some interesting topics of conversation for down on the farm as the Memphis Redbirds had a nice day down at the yard. So let's go down on the farm. It's time to go down on the farm. Brought to you by Hastings Layers Premium Eggs.
You'll be happier than a jackass eating thistle.
Huh? So the Memphis Redbirds actually won 2 games on Friday. One of them was picking up, I believe, from where they left off after yesterday's game got postponed or delayed, whatever the word is, due to rain. I believe that was from yesterday. And that was the game Quinn Matthews started. So we saw they resumed that game today. Memphis wins it 8-3. Walker continued playing in that game. He ended up 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts in that game. 1 or 2 of those Ks came yesterday, though. Like, remember, he had 3 plate appearances, I think, before the rain. Matt Swanson, Gordon Graceffo filled out some scoreless innings for the Redbirds as they win Game 1. Game 2, though, 7-inning affair. Memphis Redbirds win it 8-1, which is great to see. And they opted to have Jordan Walker play that game as well. Talk about getting some swings in. And that game went much better for Jay Walk. 3 for 4, 2 runs scored, 3 runs driven in for Walker. You love to see that. All 3 were singles, no extra base hits from Walker in that second game. But still, pretty good to see that from him. And seems like his timing is definitely returning. So should be ready to join the Cardinals hopefully at any time. Shoot, ship him to Milwaukee for tomorrow, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think they will do that. They'll probably give him at least one more day. And they might just give him the weekend, so he would join the team Tuesday. If they travel-wise, they're in Gwinnett, so makes it a little bit tricky. He could just maybe meet them in Chicago. I don't think he needs any more rehab. He DH'd game 2, but if the bat's ready to go, that's what you're missing. Get him up there. This idea that you have to wait for an off day, I don't know. That's just my rant. I've had a lot of those. Sajasi was 2 for 3 with 3 RBIs and a walk in the second game. His OPS is 790. I want to make something clear about this stuff. Like, I think Sajasi should have been up instead of Valade for sure, but he's not the savior. Like, he's OPSing 790 in AAA. So he could come up and have a 690 OPS just like any of the rest of them, just like Lars Nootbaar has right now, just like, Arenado. So it's not that he would come up and be the savior, but you want to be putting your best foot forward against the Milwaukee Brewers in these meaningful divisional games. And I don't feel the Cardinals are doing that from a roster standpoint, and that's why I critique and criticize. So that's my stance there. By the way, Curtis Taylor threw a complete game for Memphis in Game 2, 7 innings, 1 run allowed. He's got a 3.24 ERA this year, has done a nice job filling in. I'm not saying he's going to get a big league look at any point. He's a 29-year-old kind of non-prospect, but a 3.2 ERA in AAA is still something. I mean, that's something to keep an eye on. I know that, a lot of times we look at the prospects that are younger And he's, 29 years old, kind of just feels like an organizational depth type of guy, but good for him for continuing to grind it out. And those are the type of guys that you want to see get a big league debut, at some point. So, and I guess I say that without really knowing fully the backstory of Curtis Taylor and whether he's ever had a big league debut. Doesn't appear that he has. So, I don't know. 3.24 ERA now for Taylor, 48 strikeouts in 58 innings. Doesn't jump off the page, but he's given them some meaningful innings in Memphis when they've had all those injuries. That's not for nothing. Springfield Cardinals got a win as well, 6-4 over Tulsa. Continuing a nice day for the system there for the Redbird affiliates. Checking. It looks like it was a day off, though, for J.J. Weatherholt, but Jeremy Rivas, 2 for 4. Leonardo Bernal had a big day at the plate, had a home run, his 11th of the year. And he's no PSing 952. He was 3 for 3 with 3 RBIs, also reached base via walk, hitting 305. He'll be due to go up to AAA at some point, and you got Jimmy Crooks there. The logjam of catcher is something that Cardinals fans are savvy and look ahead and say, hey, what are you going to do about this? I don't think it's that big of a deal yet, but for sure after this season, when maybe both Bernal and Crooks are going to be knocking on the big league door, by the time you get to spring training next year, it definitely does need to be sorted out a little bit. And look, I've talked a lot in glowing terms about Pedro Pajes. His bat is more limited compared to what Bernal, Crooks, Herrera, all three of them can be at the big league level. But I think for right now, until proven otherwise, he's king of the court when it comes to defense, game management, all the things that the St. Louis Cardinals have valued, going all the way back to Mike Matheny in their catchers. So it's going to be incumbent upon those guys, Crooks, Bernal, to step it up defensively and game calling and learn those things. It's one of those deals that you don't really know what you don't know until you get into it more at the big league level, and having those big league spring trainings to glean from, the veteran players and they don't have a Yachty around, right? So when you talk about trying to learn from a veteran, Pajes is kind of that guy at this point. And I think he sets a good standard, but it is something that you think about, like, can the Cardinals supplement with some additional, what's the catching coordinator situation look like in spring this coming year? Because 2 years ago, it was supposed to be Yachty. Didn't show up. That's fine. He's got other priorities, but it's just a reality that I still think is impacting the Cardinals. So just a couple of different thoughts there. Good work by Pete Hansen, who threw 6 scoreless innings for AA Springfield, lowers the ERA to 3.81. There's so many compelling Cardinals topics yet to go, but that's going to do it for this edition of the show. I will be heading to the Lake of the Ozarks for the next week, so you will not hear me on maybe as many STL Sports Central shows or the big show over the next week, but the podcast B-Schaeff Daily should continue as planned. Maybe not always 30-minute episodes like this one, but I will try to mix it in during the family vacation because I am just that dedicated to talking about a team that has lost 6 in a row. You're welcome. Probably you are not enjoying this podcast anyway right now. I know everybody enjoys it more when they win. I'd prefer them to win as well because it's kind of getting old to fend off some of the restless natives, which, again, I don't mean to be harsh with some of my criticism or commentary, but, again, my only question or my only hope for you is that if you have something to criticize, just use data to back it up. Don't say Lars Nootbaar's never been good when a 112 OPS plus suggests for his career over a 5-year span, he's 12% above league average. That's pretty damn good. Has he been good this year? No. Has he been good this month? Hell no. But we'll see if he's able to find his way out of it from a different spot in the batting order because he will not be leading off on Saturday. That's going to do it, though, for this edition of the show. Thank you guys so much for sticking with me, bearing with me, and listening. And we'll talk to you next time on B-Schaeff Daily. Peace.